Hey everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am here with Carter from Sky. My name is Sabra. I am the CEO and co-founder of Hawk Networks. We help support and incubate the Althea ecosystem, including Althea L1. And we're super excited to chat a little bit more about the upcoming iFi DEX and how that's intersecting and making available the savings rate and the stablecoin USDS and USDS. Althea's had a long history on the Gnosis chain using DAI as a stablecoin medium exchange between routers in an internet network. And really excited to continue this next chapter. We had some audio and visual issues, so if you are noticing anything or this quality isn't quite as good as it normally is, apologize, and hopefully we can maybe clean that up a little bit in post. But appreciate everyone who's here joining the call today or maybe joining in later. Please feel free to add in questions or anything that that might pop up in your mind in Discord or in Twitter, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. So Carter, I'm gonna let you, if you can introduce yourself, let us know what you're doing with Sky, and we'll get into the conversation.
Absolutely. Carter here. Thanks for having me on. Head of Business Development in North America for the Sky ecosystem. I've been very focused on multi-chain expansion. So USDS, kind of the new stablecoin for MakerDAO. Now Sky has gone to Solana. It's gone to Arbitrum and Base. And actually, Althea and everything that's being done over here is kind of one of the first to be bringing it to Cosmos permissionlessly, which I think is amazing. And along with USDS, the dollar pegged over collateralized stablecoin is also the savings rate. And just super excited to have this conversation about machine payments and kind of what you view the role of stablecoins and yield-bearing stablecoins within this kind of growing economy and vertical. So just super curious.
Yeah, very, very exciting. Exactly right. And I think what's interesting is Althea's probably was very, early on. We launched back in 2017. And instead of using a speculative token to, like reward people for bandwidth, as you see in a lot of DePIN projects, Althea really focused on removing the frictions and the problems of interconnection and utility type networks and in telecom. And then settling those payments with microtransactions and stable coins. And what we've seen too is, of course, that the more speculative models really don't have that sustainability. And I think that's what's so exciting about the medium of exchange in stables is it's non-cyclical revenue, right? So, you can have lots of spikes and ups and down. And, for those of us who've been in the industry a long time, those can be great as supplemental, but when you're running a utility network, whether it's energy or telecom, you can't have your internet bill be $50 one day, $10 the next, and obviously that doesn't work. So in the beginning, we actually did start with Ethereum, and then we quickly moved to the Gnosis chain, and then settled in DAI. And actually, I was just talking to someone the other day. I mean, the last few years, it's been, really exciting to see that, that DAI has been reliable and stable. And I remember Black Thursday. I don't know if you were around back in those days.
I wasn't a part of the MakerDAO / Sky ecosystem. I wasn't a contributor then, but yes, obviously one of the counters. Whenever you see a stablecoin depeg, it's cause for serious concern.
Yeah, so rode through even the darkest of days, the darkest of Thursdays, hopefully the darkest ever. Hopefully we don't end up having those situations again. But, and I think that's, as the industry has matured, that reliability has been kind of that pillar that has made everything really grow and mature to where we're at now, where, really this is, we think about programmable money. What it is with utilities is programmable infrastructure, right? This is why we call it iFi or infrastructure finance. It gives, more flexible and dynamic ways to not only manage and operate networks, but to look at funding them in different ways and having more ownership locally and more choice and ability to leverage, which, I think is very important to taking back our agency and having those choices that, we have in what is mostly a rental economy today, right? We don't own things. I remember, physical books or physical media and you preserve your choice and your freedoms when you have that kind of ownership and leverage. So it's a big thing for us to think about how, that stablecoin ecosystem plays into that. And of course, this sovereignty is also why we built the iFi DEX, so that the whole ecosystem, could be purpose built toward this utility architecture. And maybe you could talk us through, so we talked a little bit about history of DAI, with Maker, Black Thursday, and, but what's happening now that's now Sky? So what's the, maybe you can talk us through kind of that transition.
So the first biggest thing was there was a lot of market research that was done about DAI, and because it's dollar pegged, and the dollar brand wasn't anywhere within the symbol or the token moniker, it created like a lot of confusion. So one of the first things with this vision for the Sky ecosystem was a simplified brand. Like, what is a DAI? What is a MakerDAO? Some of these words, when a lot of research was done on it, there was like a lot of confusion from more traditional or newer users into the ecosystem. So first piece is brand. Sky is much simpler, much lighter, a lot less heavy. And then USDS as a stable coin, when you hear it out loud, you immediately know that it's dollar pegged, instead of, if you're a first time user and you hear the word DAI, like there isn't that dollar association within the brand. So first biggest piece is just simplicity. Second biggest thing has been, now that we have this rebrand, we're transitioning over and basically decommissioning the MKR token, so people can convert their MKR tokens into the Sky token, and the Sky token can be staked and is the governance token of the entire Sky ecosystem of products. We've seen really, really good growth. USDS just crossed the 4 billion mark, so one of the fastest growing stable coins. And then a newer concept is something called STARS, which is basically the Sky ecosystem incubating different projects, extending out credit lines and loans from the DAO to them. It's like instead of trying to be like a standalone project, instead having a genuine ecosystem of partners that can tap into the liquidity of the Sky ecosystem. So Spark is an example. They just launched. They're at like 5 billion in TVL, and they're so
looks like Carter, just real quick, it looks like you froze for just a little bit. If you can kind of talk a little bit more about the CDL. You said something about a CDL and then you froze.
Oh, sorry. Basically, the STARS program is probably the most exciting initiative besides the rebrand, the token migration, and USDS going multi-chain. And what STARS are is basically the Sky ecosystem is incubating other projects, USDS within those other ecosystems. So hopefully there'll be a star that comes to Cosmos one day. And I think that because Cosmos is the internet of blockchains, there's going to be an ever-growing number of blockchains in this ecosystem. And there really hasn't been a decentralized stablecoin over here ever since the UST and Terra collapsed. There's been a total vacuum. Most of the other decentralized stablecoins in Cosmos are also gone. Like USK from Kajira is no longer a thing. IST from Agoric also is like officially wound down. So there basically isn't decentralized stablecoins in Cosmos. So I think it's really cool that Althea is being one of the the brave ones to try to import truly decentralized stablecoins into Cosmos. And yeah, I would love to also give you the floor to talk about how you guys are actually bridging over that liquidity, and to talk more about the DEX and how it's going to leverage USDS.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great segue. And I think we are really excited to be bringing the iFi DEX, which of course it's an EVM on the Cosmos SDK. So that allows for other chains in the Interchain or the Cosmos ecosystems to interconnect into the iFi DEX very seamlessly and utilize the liquidity of sUSDS, USDS on the chain, and really start to utilize this decentralized stable in a seamless way. So really, I think we're going to be the first chain to really bring that into the ecosystem. If you've been on the testnet, test.althea.link, we've been utilizing that to really test out the whole ecosystem. So we're very excited to be the first to bring this into the Cosmos ecosystem. But to your point, one of the main frictions has been when a stablecoin starts in the Cosmos ecosystem, it generally tends to maintain in the Cosmos ecosystem itself. And, there's been a few different projects, UST, Canto, Agoric, really, and then trying to bridge out rather than, if we look at DAI or sUSDS now, this is a EVM based stable, it's standardized, and can become more easily interoperable. And I think that's a big part of, and then we utilize, one of the first bridges is Gravity Bridge, right? Which is also a decentralized bridge operated by the operators. It's been built since 2021. And so this really allows that resilience that decentralization and standardization brings in, which I'm really excited about. I think this is why this approach will, continue to be viable both now, of course, and then in the future, rather than, where it's a bit siloed, right? I mean, the benefits of the interchain are one, sovereignty, being able to sort of build purpose-built, but also that interoperability is really, really important. So, and we're, excited that Gravity, of course, has been a, reliable bridge for many, many years. We help support that. Hop does from some dev work there, and then, but looking to obviously, its future and sustainability as well.
Totally. I mean, I think the more and more of this kind of current
Oh, we lost you, Carter. We gotta get Carter. You need an Althea network.
Oh no! I need. Unfortunate.
Oh, your pause.
Test.
All right. Do we want to you just cut out a bit there? Do we want to go ahead and go off a video and then continue kind of via conversation? Maybe that'll help with your connection a bit.
And we can try that. I apologize. Do not know why the internet is not stable today. But to what I was going to say there is, I think we're seeing a return to values really in crypto. Basically, the bear market's been so brutal, and there's been a lot of projects that have been wiped out. And I think what's emerging are the truly resilient projects that have focused on first principles of decentralization, of immutability, of stability, of consistency. And I think, a lot of Cosmos kind of tried to do its own siloed experiments for on like the DeFi side of things versus trying to import some of the more resilient DeFi primitives. I think what you guys are doing is like super interesting. You're using the Cosmos stack specifically for the machine payments, and you're having your very specific edges there. But then you're using kind of already proven DeFi primitives to kind of empower that entire economy. Versus, imagine if you tried to set out to build your own stable coin. Like that would be, it's a very tough proposition to be many things at once. Very, very interesting what you guys are doing. I would love to learn more too about sUSDS and how you envision that integrating in this world of machine payments, just because yield-bearing stablecoins, I think, are increasingly becoming something that have a lot of product market fit in crypto, and wondering for your vertical specifically, how you think that's going to be relevant.
Yeah, happy to chat a little bit about it. I think it's pretty exciting because, essentially we're talking about infrastructure financing. So one of the kind of core primitives of Althea is liquid infrastructure. So a few years kind of into building the machine-to-machine payments for networks, you come to the conclusion around kind of how, networks are capital intensive, right? And there's a lot of different ways that, traditional telcos like finance and a lot of debt financing. The cost of capital is pretty high, and it's not very accessible. That market is not very accessible. So you end up finding that, I mean, it's not the reason why telcos don't work super well right now for users isn't because they're evil. It's actually not really working super well for telcos as well, right? So in fact, the term was coined bankruptcy G, like 4G, 5G, now bankruptcy G, because a lot of those, as cost of capital kept getting higher and margins kept getting kind of more pinned down, a lot of the companies sort of like fold in under that. So this lack of friction. What's also interesting too is as soon as you start getting these machine-to-machine payments, you have a much larger total addressable market, right? The market of machines, you have flexibility of payments, so more people can participate in these markets. So it's been really exciting that Althea really solves kind of those three, those kind of two big ones, which is cost of infrastructure, and then increases the market size by up to 25%, which is huge. But then when we think about secondary things, right? So really putting that financing to work in a really exciting way. This is where I think the sUSDS is really interesting. And one of the really key things about Althea's RWAs, as opposed to some other approaches where it's like mostly off-chain, and then you have some sort of on-chain representation. With Althea, the revenue streams instantly. So as soon as someone is making a $5 payment or a 30-cent payment within an internet network or a telecom network, that payment then is issued to the liquid infrastructure, smart contract, and NFT, and then distributed to the different fractionalized lit or liquid infrastructure token holders. Which is so exciting to see, right? So as soon as you have your participation in the liquid infrastructure tokens, you're going to see streaming revenue, and that's really where then you can kind of take that and put that to work into the DeFi ecosystem, and that's what I think is exciting about the iFi DEX. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. It feels like you guys are living in like the future compared to a lot of these older telecom companies. Have you seen anyone else building similar infrastructure, or do you feel like you guys are truly on an island with how far ahead you are on some of these advantages?
Well, it's funny that you say that because we just saw some of these. What we're seeing is actually, instead of telecoms actually becoming more future-like, there's a shift and an inflection point happening where enterprises are becoming their own carrier. And actually, we had an auto manufacturer a few years ago come to us and say something similar. Look, we're spending, we're estimating a few $1 billion over about 10 years. We can really offset a lot of our connectivity costs if we become our own telco. Or we even saw, it was just this week that was announced that Klarna, which is a payments layer, right, has now embedded connectivity into their offering. Now, Althea supercharges this because we're actually embedding the wallets into the machines themselves. So you have basically smart machines that are able to make choices of latency and payments and have a lot of agency within the machine environment itself. Sort of takes what Klarna is doing to the next levels at. And of course, all of this is on chain. Klarna's not doing it on chain. Althea kind of takes that to its full, potential of programmable iFi or infrastructure financing. by using the blockchain primitives. So that's exciting. So we are seeing a bit of it, this kind of inflection point as what we think about as an MNO, like a mobile network operator, is is rapidly changing, which is, I don't know, it's exciting. I've been doing this for a very long time, so it feels like it's.
And what would you say are the biggest friction points for you guys on seeing more adoption?
Well, I think that our friction point are not necessarily on adoption. The traction is definitely there, and we grow year over year. I mean, I think we're a lot of the work that we do is in the U.S., so things like supply line are an issue, hardware is an issue, to build 5G radios and so forth. And so I think that there's more just kind of macro frictions that tend to be a bit of a headwinds. But to my earlier point, the tailwind here is cost of capital and addressable market. So there's a lot of traction and adoption, really streaming our way. And then the friction just ends up being a bit on the just logistical side of things, right? Can you get the manpower? Can you get the equipment needed to build these out? And then integration friction, right? How do you integrate it with existing systems? Which is kind of, in telecom, it's better than in energy, right? Like if we're going to do a decentralized energy grid, it has integration friction, but not to that level in telco, thankfully.
So interesting. And what would you say? I feel like one of the biggest buzzwords, but also legitimate major forces in the last 2 years is AI. Is there any crossover into this world of physical infrastructure with those things, or how do you kind of view AI in relation to what you guys are doing? Any crossover, or totally different thing?
Oh my goodness, we could spend all the whole talking about AI crossover here. But I think that so 6G is really supposed to be, you take 5G, sort of disaggregate. So what 5G does is take your telecom stack, your logic and your broadcasting equipment, your radios, and disaggregate all the little components into all these different Legos, which is what's so exciting about 5G, in particular, something called ORAN, which is basically a plug and play. It's supposed to be agnostic to the hardware vendor. As long as you follow the spec, you should be able to stack the pieces together. And then what comes up in 6G is you put intelligence in different components as well. And this is really where Hawk Networks team has a lot of expertise in putting these embedded wallets into very small devices and starting to develop on, in the RIC or the integrated controllers, and into the different components of how the radios actually are. So the different components of the radio stack can, detect something moving and issue a microtransaction, or do things like dynamic spectrum allocation. So there's actually a lot of very interesting things that are happening on the AI side in the architecture of infrastructure itself that allows for, and what it really enables is multi-stakeholdership. So that right now what we have when we have a telco, they own all of the, they own all the hardware, and they own all the, all of the routes. And so anytime you need to compete, you have to go and rebuild everything. But the promise of Althea is that one piece of infrastructure and many different stakeholders can own either bits and parts of it, or can collaborate to route that packet kind of end to end. And then Althea is the world's only micro transaction multi-hop platform. So all along that route, we're doing little microtransactions in real time as that data is moving through the network. So wow. I think it's going to be an interesting, next 5 to 10 years, although I would caution that things take time. And there's a lot of marketing in 5G, and we're still really not quite there. So
basically, the stacks that have been traditionally completely aggregated into single ownership are heading towards standards that allow multi-ownership, and you need a payments network that can fluidly and dynamically manage the flow of packets and the costs and revenue accordingly within these kind of like multi-entity relationships on top of this infrastructure stack. Is that roughly tracking right?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, exactly. But what's very exciting to me is really the what happens when you start to disaggregate and you have multi-stakeholdership is you really kind of shifting that balance back to alignment with the end user, back to the user having sovereignty over their data and where that moves. So it's not only like a revolution in how these utilities are designed, but it's a revolution in like really where those choices are getting made. And so I think it's very exciting, and this is a lot why it makes what we do in blockchain, which is where we all started, or many of us started with the idea that blockchain was going to allow these kinds of economic systems, and I think it's worth doing because of that.
Fascinating. Well, I am so excited to see kind of you guys continue to grow and to see stablecoins be at the center of all of those different payments. I have a million questions in my head. I do have to unfortunately head off to another call right now, but it's truly been a pleasure chatting with you and working with the Althea team to bring USDS and sUSDS to machine payments. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we cross paths.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely love to have you back on again as the iFi DEX launches. And for those that would like to kind of get involved and kick the tires, we'd love to have you as part of our testnet. Reach out in Althea Discord or get a hold of us in Twitter. And we'd love to have you participate in the testnet and play around with some USDS, see how that whole system works. Thank you again, Carter, for being on. We look forward to working together with the Sky team and bringing the world of programmable payments to iFi.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.